Good morning. So I am finally showered, finally got some sleep. And this year I am calling this the year of love. I want to do this campaign of love. And really, the whole point of the campaign of love is for me to figure out how to love myself better, to love other people better, to be a more like loving presence. Like I talk about this love virus sometimes. It's like you touch someone and then it spreads the love to them, and then they touch someone and it spreads the love to everyone they touch. And so this is my goal for this year is to figure out how to spread more love. And yesterday I was sitting in the airport, at 24 hours of sitting in the airport, and I had started to do a video, and of course my laptop died, so now I'm redoing the video. But my talk today is about stepping into the feminine flow. And no, I don't mean menstruation. And when I say feminine, this is not limited to women. The masculine and the feminine are more energies that all of us should embody to keep us in balance. It's like the yin to the yang, the masculine to the feminine. Like the masculine is more the doing energy, the structure, the order, the timeliness, the foundational energy, and the feminine is more of a relaxed, soft surrender, rejuvenation, regeneration, because you can't be doing all the time and you can't be rejuvenating all the time. So there needs to be this balance, and I think in a lot of ways we're really out of balance. We're either more in our masculine or more in our feminine, or even more in a toxic masculine or toxic femininity. And one of my lessons, after 25 years in the military, I think everyone would agree with me that's more of a masculine energy, typically speaking. And so for me, one of my goals is to balance this masculine and feminine energy. And it's amazing how when you say something, like when you say, okay, I'm trying to balance this masculine and feminine energy, how the universe like presents you with these scenarios where it's like, okay, you want to learn this? I've got a lesson for you. And so yesterday, I actually 2 days ago, I started traveling early in the morning. I was in Costa Rica, and I had 3 flights to get me to Paris. And of course, the first flight was delayed. And then that meant that then I missed my second flight. And all of these cascading events, and it was what I think most people would call a pretty miserable day and a pretty stressful day. I spent 2 hours on the phone just trying to get through the waiting queue to talk to a human to figure out how to rebook my flights. And then I finally get to my first destination, and the human beings told me to go to the phone, which then put me in another queue. And so yeah, I was pretty frustrated. And but there were lots of lessons in that for me, because I think that when life presents us with challenges, and I'm not always good at this, because I think sometimes we just reach our tipping point where we step out of that loving, understanding energy into like, okay, I've reached my limit of what I can process, what I can hold for the moment. And at some point I was like, oof, like I've reached my limit. But it taught me a lot of things. One thing that it taught me was a lot of times things happen. I mean, like, I don't know anyone who hasn't had something, negative happen to them, something difficult happen to them. And when negative or difficult things happen, we have a choice. And this is what I found myself telling myself yesterday and the day before, was like, okay, I have a choice. I can either try to fight the scenario, which isn't going to change anything, or I can figure out, what I can do. Because if I've learned anything, like I'm a resilient person and I'm a competent person, and I'm pretty good at kind of figuring out how to roll with different things, and I have enough experience traveling to go, okay, like let's do this. Like this is a skill set that I have. And although, I don't always like to employ it, especially when I've already purchased airline tickets that you think you're going to get there. Um, but, I have to trust, I have to trust that I am resilient and that I do have the capacity to make it through. And sometimes it doesn't feel like it in the moment, but I know me and I trust me. Um, and I trust that, okay, whatever it is that it's going to hand me, like I can roll with that. And, to practice gratitude, like at some point, like I was like, well, because my third flight, which the first flight, then made me miss my second flight, which then of course made me miss my third flight. And my third flight was with a different airline, so of course the airline doesn't care. Like it's not booked with us, so we don't care. And so yeah, I found myself frustrated because that's $300-400 that now I get to eat and have to figure out like, okay, will my credit card reimburse me, blah blah blah. I'm not going to go into that. But the gratitude was, okay, I'm leaving Costa Rica, I'm on my way to Paris, like I think I'm in a pretty privileged situation. Like there are people who can't afford to travel like that. To even say, hey, I've been in Costa Rica, for the past couple weeks, I'm headed to Paris, like that. I have to realize that there's gratitude that I need to be sitting with in that. And the fact that while it sucks that I'm eating, $300-400, um, the fact that I can do that, may not like it, but I can do that and it's not going to kill me. That there's gratitude in that. But when we talk about this masculine and feminine flow, it's surrendering to what is. It's going, yeah, I can fight the scenario. I can exert a whole lot of energy, in being angry because I did find myself apologizing, in advance almost, um, because I could feel the frustration I was sitting in, and I could, talking to a human and then directing me to a phone, I could feel my frustration. It was like, why are customer service people not wanting to provide customer service? I finally found a human and they don't want to help me. And then, so I just found myself frustrated, but, clearly there was nothing that I could do about that. There was nothing that the person on the other side of the desk, could or would, whichever one you want to use, do about that. Um, and so what I'm trying to step more into is okay, how much energy do I want to exert on this? Waste. I mean, because it is wasted because I could sit there and I could be angry and I could stew in it and I could, be a total jerk to the person who's not helping me, or I could go, okay, like let me look at what, and I think in those situations a lot of people would be irritated. But part of what got irritated in me is this part that goes, I just want to be supported in life. And what gets triggered in me when I'm not getting support is all of the times in my life where I have felt unsupported. So a lot of times the reaction isn't necessarily what's just happening in the moment. It's all the moments that have felt exactly like this moment. And I did feel that getting activated, like, oh, here we go again. Once again, the universe or this person at customer service doesn't want to help me. And I think a lot of times we set up this cycle when we start to say things like that, or we start to even think things like that. So instead of being grateful that I could travel and that I could afford to travel, and that even though it's not optimal, I had the resources to then, rebook, flights and to get to where I needed to go. Um, so the first thing is surrendering to what is. The second thing is to practice gratitude, for what is. And then, trusting in yourself and your resilience and your capability. And, so this has really been my my teacher, this travel, because whenever things bad happen, I always try to go, what's the teacher? What's the lesson that the universe is presenting to me? So that was my teacher. To practice gratitude, to surrender to what is, to not waste energy and on things that you can't control. And so, this is my question for you today. Because there's been a couple of things that I've said, like, one, where in your life are you fighting the scenario? Where in your life are there situations that you can't control, you can't change, and yet you are wasting a lot of energy trying to control it or trying to change it? And, when you do get frustrated, is this just what's going on in the moment, or is this, the other things that this looks exactly like that have now gotten coupled with this and add energy to how I feel in this moment? And in my case, I had to really stop myself because I did find myself being a jerk, like saying things like, "Oh, okay, I understand. You don't want to help me. The airline doesn't care," you know, and in some cases they really don't care. They're worried about their bottom line. And it was a snowstorm, so it's like, what are you going to do about it? But the question for today is, what are the scenarios that I'm fighting? Where am I exerting and wasting a lot of energy that could be directed somewhere else? So I just want you to sit with that question for a bit. And you can drop it down below, because I think as we start to have this conversation and we start um, to talk about what's going on in our lives, then, it starts the conversation, and we realize that we're not alone, because people go, oh, yeah, that's probably an area I'm wasting energy into. And maybe even someone is like, oh yeah, when I had that happen to me, this is what I did. And that's not to give advice, because sometimes unsolicited advice is the most annoying thing in the world. But sometimes just sharing your experience can, A, make you feel like you're not alone, but also kind of go, oh, well, when that person, maybe I should try that, you know? So, yeah. So let's just sit with that question. Drop your answer down below. And until next time, I'll see you then.